Good morning. We are gathered to remember and celebrate the life of William C. Knapp. It is good and right for us to be here today. Importantly, we will not only remember and speak well of Bill's 99 years of life, but we will also commend him to God, trusting that he is already a part of the communion of the saints, being held in the unending love of God. Friends, will you please join your hearts with mine in prayer? Loving and compassionate God, we ask that you meet us here as we remember and celebrate the life of Bill Knapp, who we trust is at rest with you. Comfort us as we mourn and guide us as we grieve. In this hour, help us remember the gift that Bill's life was to us and to you. We invoke your name, the hope of Christ, and the promise of resurrection life. Amen.
Good morning and welcome to this celebration of Bill Knapp's life and the legacy that he lived and will continue to be in all our hearts. Susan, I know there's been an outpouring of love and many memories that have been shared with you this past week, and similarly to the Knapp family. And we've all experienced that this week. And a takeaway as I read each one was the impact that Bill Knapp had on everything he touched. That impact was that breadth of it, the width of it, and it was deep. Bill lived a life with purpose. And I would add, great laughter. I think back to the very first time I met Bill. It was 1999. I just moved to Des Moines. We were purchasing Mid-American, the electric utility. And I asked some of our senior business leaders, who should I meet in Des Moines? They gave me two names, who both of them were very responsive and thankful for that. But I remember as I called Bill, one of those leaders, I'm thinking, geez, I'll call him and who knows when it'll all come together. And I called Bill and all of a sudden I'm patched right through to Bill. And I start to explain a little bit of why I moved to Des Moines, and in great Bill fashion, I didn't know that at this time, he said, well, what are you doing tomorrow? And I'm like, well, nothing. I'm talking to Bill Knapp, like, what do you want me to do? I stand ready to go. And I hadn't met him yet. And he said, well, let's have lunch, 11:30 at Nick's. So off I go to lunch with Bill for the first time. And here I am thinking, getting prepared and thinking about how to start to build a relationship. And Bill shows up at lunch with two very direct purposes of the meeting or agenda. He said to me as I sat down, we started talking, and he said, well, the utility can be a great asset of the state and the people of Iowa if it's run right. And you've got a lot to fix. And he just laid it out there. And he said, and by the way, as he laid it out there, he was the first to both offer suggestions and willing to help, because he viewed it as an asset of the state, and I couldn't agree more. Secondly, Bill said, as the company becomes stronger and a better company, be a good corporate citizen, give back. Very first lunch with Bill, probably 10 minutes into that conversation, he was laying out the path forward. And I'll forever remember that. Very fortunate after that lunch that it was a friendship that grew. Our families became very close, intertwined, and I know my family and Susan and the Knapp family, we treasure that relationship. But as that grew, the thing I loved the most when I was with Bill and Susan was the deep love Bill had for Susan. It was deep. There was an enormous amount of respect. And yet it came with it, there was just sheer joy of the life they were sharing together. And it was so special to see that each time we were with them. There was a zeal for life. Now, as those meetings continued and as we'd have time together as families, there was always moments I just wanted to learn more from Bill. And it could have been that very first question that I'm sure a few of us have asked, which was, Bill, you went to war at such a young age. Why? And yet his response was so crisp and clear to me. And I remember again to this day, Greg, we're losing the war. What we had today or back then was no longer going to exist. what we have today would have been gone. I had to join the war. I had to defend our country and our rights. And then I remember asking, well, Bill, when you came back, it seemed like the natural thing to do was to farm. Your parents were farmers, you knew that. And Bill said, again, I remember the response, he said, I wasn't afraid of the hard work. It's hard work. I wasn't afraid of the hard work. But what he said was, there was so much uncertainty. And he shared the fact that it might be diseases that hit the crops. It might be the drought or the climate that impacts the yield and the harvest. And then he said, and then you don't even know what the price is going to be when you finally have your product. And I just thought, there's that entrepreneur applying it to farming. And he soon then opened a cafe in Allerton, his hometown. And again, I couldn't help but ask Bill, okay, you were in that, it was successful, but you sold it. And he said, well, I opened the cafe, and it was obviously it allowed him to remain in his hometown. But he said, I soon knew each day who was going to have breakfast, next day who's going to have lunch, who was going to have dinner, and that was the year. He said, I could see my whole year in front of me, and both what the opportunity presented. And in fine Bill fashion, and starting this, now we know what the entrepreneur he is, but obviously at that point, he highlighted, he just wanted to start to develop something a little larger and pursue something a little greater. And as fate would have it, he's selling the cafe. The individual who he'd hired as a broker to sell it, let's just say, wasn't doing a great job. Bill stepped in, sold the cafe, but more importantly, he found his passion, what he loved, real estate. And again, it was going to be hard work. He wasn't afraid of that, but he knew. He said, I fell in love with this. And when it comes to real estate, let's just say the rest is history. Now, I've shared each of those because my takeaways always from my conversations with Bill was, no matter what he was doing, no matter what the event was, no matter what part of his life it was, there was a purpose to everything Bill did. And what a way to live a life. It's just absolutely incredible. They live with that purpose, but also with this wonderful trait of service. Bill and I were invited to speak at Camp David once, and speak is maybe a little strong. We were invited to talk to Secretary of Agriculture, Governor Vilsack's team, as they transitioned from public sector they had served. They are transitioning into the private sector now. And they kindly asked if Bill and I would come to Camp David and speak to that team and the Marines that were at the camp that were available to join. And again, Bill's message associated with that was so strong. He started by thanking everyone, those that had just served in the government and those that were serving in the Marines. He started by thanking them for their service with deep, deep gratitude. He then, as he would, reminded them it was incredibly important they found a way to continue to serve. And then we progressed to what was next for them. And that was, as a transition, Bill went right to find your love, find your passion. And he reminded them, you've got the greatest opportunity in front of you right now. You're in between things. This is your chance to find, you've had that dream, you've loved something, and have you pursued it? Do it now. And that part of it just, again, Bill's messages were so clear and always so strong to all of us. Now, there's a bit of a humorous side to the Camp David visit. Not everyone's heard this story. Because when you're at Camp David, when you come into the camp, you get rid of your phones, you sign your life away, you do everything, and from that moment on, you are surrounded by Marines. Yes, you get sort of full access to everything, and as you're wandering around, you can feel the presence of them everywhere. So our day finishes. It's been a wonderful day, as I shared. Bill and I get in the car, we're driving off, and we have to stop at the gate. We sign back out, we get our phones, and we're leaving the camp, and we turn out of the camp. We're now on a public little road, highway, and Bill says to me, geez, we didn't get a picture today. We didn't have our phones. Let's get a picture. So I pull over the car, we get out. Bill and I proudly go behind the vehicle. The camp's in the background. We take a picture, and we're really quite proud of ourselves. We've got our picture together, and we get back in the car, and I start driving. And we hadn't gone 5 feet. We're surrounded by park rangers. We had a vehicle on every side of us. We're pulled over, and 2 park rangers, let's just call them very large Marines, are adamantly knocking on the windows of Bill's window and my window. I wisely roll mine down to see, okay, I know we're in trouble. And right away, the Marine's asking me, okay, why are you here? What were you doing? And who are you? And why did you take that picture? And in the meantime, the Marine's still knocking on Bill's window, adamantly, and getting very mad at him. And I'm sitting there saying, okay, this isn't going well, but we'll play through it. And so I'm listening to him, and then he says, well, you're not allowed to take pictures. And then Bill chimes in, we're on a public road, we didn't do anything wrong, and if we did something wrong, throw us in the brig. And I'm looking at Bill thinking, looks like we're going to the brig, because he's not backing down, Bill, and he's not opening that window and unlocking that door. So I'm talking to the Marine, and I'm like, okay, so we didn't know we weren't allowed to, and we truly thought we're on a public road. And Bill chimes in, we are on a public road, and we can take a picture, and if we did something wrong, throw us in the brig. He's determined we're going to the brig. And so at that moment, I said to the Marine, okay, I'm hearing the other one, and I'm hearing him get very mad. I'm like, okay, well, what would you like us to do? And he's like, how about we delete the photos? I'm like, perfect. So I get my phone, we delete the photos. I can see a little smile coming over his face, so I know we're not going to the brig as far as I can tell. But, so we finish that moment. Bill never rolled down his window, never acknowledged that Marine. He's a little, I think, frustrated with me that I folded. I showed a moment of weakness, yes. And so we start driving down the road, and we are laughing hard because of the whole experience. And I'm asking Bill, I'm like, Bill, like those other stories, I mean, why did you want to go to the brig so badly? And he's like, all those years in the Navy, I never spent a night in the brig. And I thought this was our chance. But what stands out to me about that ride back to Washington was how hard Bill laughed, how hard I laughed. But Bill's laugh, it was so special. And as I stand here today, I can feel Bill's laughter. And it's something I'll treasure. The only thing better in life is when I think of Bill and Susan laughing together. That laughter was so special that you shared. We'll all cherish it. Bill, I love you.
quite a little perch here. Before I make my remarks, I'm going to read some remarks from Jenny and her family. Jenny was a little shy and didn't want to get up and make a speech today, so. From Jenny, for 75 years, I've had my dad in my life, and thinking about a life without my dad in it still has me quite puzzled. But to look back, all he was brought to the community and leaves me with nothing but a smile on my face for a life well lived. My dad taught me to be kind and honest and forgiving and loving. He always said, if you have to say something, make it short and to the point. He lived by the statement, if you love what you do, it's not work. He always encouraged my brother and I to do what we wanted to do. My dad loved us unconditionally, and he gave us so much to be thankful for. I was blessed to get to call him Dad and see the extraordinary way he touched the lives of our family, friends, and the state of Iowa. I love you, Dad. Then Mark's comments, which are a little on the humorous side. He says, when Jenny and I were in 6th grade at Byron Rice Elementary School, Jenny was the cutest girl in school. One day we were walking home from school together. When we reached her home, Jenny said, wait here in the entryway. Jenny went into the kitchen to see her dad. He looked around the corner and said to Jenny, why did you drag home that mutt? And Jenny said, well, Dad, he carried my violin home for me. Things got better with time after that, Mark says. Jenny's dad taught me so much about everything. A mentor isn't a strong enough word for my feelings I have for Dad. I'd love to share more stories, but there isn't enough time to do so. Forgiveness, honesty, fairness, and love is our reward from him. We will miss you, Dad. Kendi states, as a young child, I remember spending hours in the car driving around Des Moines, looking at real estate with my grandfather. It was a Sunday ritual, never to realize that the remarkable impact and difference that he would have in the future. His kindness, his wisdom, and the life he built will always guide me and shape me into the person I am today. One of my favorite memories of my grandpa is his passion for fashion. Grandpa never wanted to leave his house without the most dapper attire and a comb in his hand to comb his hair. Grandpa always wanted to have the last word. I would say, love you, Grandpa, and he always replied, I love you more. I'll miss hearing that. Thoughts from Cole. Bill's great-grandson, Cole, says that Grandpa speaks of his grandfather as a rock, someone that he could always count on to provide support or a listening ear. He knew he loved him and he wanted the best for him, and he always would be there for him. And then Brooke, Bill's great-granddaughter, has fond memories of her grandfather. From my early childhood memories, great-grandpa Bill was always there, not missing any major milestone. He cheered me on in academics, in sports, dance, and throughout my passion for horses, which he supported through and through and is probably a little bit to blame for the continued passion and obsession I have. I was the luckiest girl in the world not to just have my great-grandfather on this earth with me for 27 years, but to have a childhood with him for all that time. Traveling from horse show to horse show in the coach with great-grandma and grandpa and Susan, having overnights at the ranch, going to Florida, or getting to see the monumental way he touched the lives of our fellow Iowans. It was truly inspiring to see his example in what a husband, a father, a grandfather, a great-grandfather, a businessman, and a veteran represents. It's truly a blessing to have had the relationship I did with my great-grandpa and to get to feel his impact for generations to come. We all have special memories of Dad, Grandpa, great-grandpa, but his love was the greatest reward of all. Love Jenny, Mark, Kendi, Cole, and Brooke. So Bill had, as all of you know, great passion. He had great ambition, determination. The things that were most important to him were his family, the real estate business, politics, and the community. when I was a freshman in college, which would have been 1971, I dropped out right before I flunked out. And Paul, my dad, said, get home from Iowa City and get a job. So Uncle Bill hired me. He had a side gig. He was the chairman and was managing the Hughes for President campaign. We were it was the ground floor of the Hubble building downtown, and he hired me to be kind of a gopher. I'd do different run errands and things like that. And I had been around Bill for, many, many years at family events, but I'd never really seen Bill in action as a business person. And I was amazed at the respect he got. We had business people, local, state, national. We had politicians coming in. We had media people, celebrities, people coming in. And Bill would have these meetings, and in that simple, clear wisdom would lead these meetings, and it just frankly amazed me. I was so impressed of what the other Bill Knapp, the business Bill Knapp, was like. So the campaign ended. Hughes decided not to run, and so we were closing up the shop, and Bill pulled me aside one time, and he said, I've noticed that you like politics and you like government and so forth. He said, maybe you should think about going back to college and getting a law degree. He said, because I'm going to tell you, I'm going to hire the first family member that becomes a lawyer. So, a few years later, I was hired. In fact, it would be 46 years this month that Bill hired me to go to work for him. And that motivation, without his motivation, I never would have done that. And without that offer, I never would have pursued law in the way that I did. So for that, I was very, very thankful. And so he was not an easy guy to work for, okay? He was tough, and he was direct, and very much to the point, hard driving, a lot of demands, but he also was very forgiving, and he was always very understanding, and he never, ever held a grudge. And in fact, I learned quickly the saying that when a law student gets out of law school, they really don't know anything. And that was the truth with me. But Bill gave me these opportunities. He would have these, big deals that he was working on, and he'd let me do the paperwork and be involved in the meetings, and long before I was competent or qualified to do the work. So, an interesting thing that he developed a slogan for me. And that slogan started, we were working on a deal, we were building a building for service merchandise over by Valley West Mall, a retail building. We were going to build it and lease it for him. And I was working on the lease, and I didn't get all the language from the letter of intent into the lease, and that was causing a problem. So I went into Bill's office. This was at the Beaver office, and many of you in the room probably were at that office. And it was a pretty small office, but probably 75% of the room was a big desk, big L-shaped desk, with Bill sitting behind in his leather chair, and then about 8 or 10 chairs around. So I went into his office, and I started to explain to him what I had done and what I was going to try to do to fix it. And he's leaning back in the chair, one foot up on the desk. He's got that exercise thing that he used to squeeze all the time, like this, and he looks at me, and he gets this real stern look, and but there was a little twinkle in his eye, and he said, Bill, I hope your errors and omissions insurance is in order. So, he used that line on me for years, even into his 90s. Now and then he'd say, is your E&O in order, Bill? So, fortunately, then came along Jerry Nugent. Jerry was a law school mate of mine. He was a year older and a lot smarter. And Jerry was in private practice, and so a year or two after I was at IR Realty, Jerry started doing our outside counsel work. He was at the Weimer firm and then the Bellin firm. And he was terrific. And Bill thought the world of him. And I don't think he ever used the E and O and thing on Jerry. I don't think he ever had to. But Jerry was, he just kept working on our projects, and Bill was so pleased, and Bill would say, "Finally, I've got the best real estate lawyer in town." And Bill was so enthused with Jerry that he finally talked him into leaving private practice and becoming the president of Knapp Properties. That was in 1993. And Jerry worked on all these projects. He got along so well with Bill. In fact, we almost considered Jerry part of the family. Bill now and then would say, "Can we change his name to Canugent?" And I think what Bill liked about Jerry is he had some of the same qualities that Bill had, and Bill recognized that. He was a deal maker. He was very involved in the community. He loved to go to groundbreakings and ribbon cuttings and open houses, and if there was a dinner, Jerry would be there, and that's what Bill was always like that. He went to everything. Jerry went to everything. Jerry had that big personality that Bill liked. So, and on top of that, he was a great lawyer. So Jerry was a very key to the operation, and Bill always appreciated the work that he did. So Bill, when he talked about his success, he always gave credit to other people, and to his employees that he would often say, "They don't work for me, they work with me." And there was three people that really stand out that helped Bill with his success of his career, I believe. The first one was his brother Paul. Now, Paul was a year and a half years younger than Bill, and they were best friends growing up on the farm, and they just did everything together. And Bill considered Paul his right-hand man. So, and Paul was involved with him with the business from the very get-go, the very beginning. So, unfortunately, in 2008, Paul died at age 80. That was the same year that Bill's son Roger died at age 49, and that was the same year of the great real estate recession. So you can only imagine how difficult that 2008 year was. Bill was a very generous employer. He was a pioneer of profit-sharing plans and retirement plans and stock option plans, and he gave people the opportunity for ownership, and it was just so important to him. He considered the people that worked with him or for him to be the key to his success. And I know that he was always happy with Jerry and I. He likewise is very happy with the team that we still have at Knapp Properties: Chris, Jake, Brett, Stuart, Christine, and Angie, and the whole team at Knapp Properties. He would love, and even in the last few years, Bill would love to come into the office. He'd walk around and he would stop in and have pleasantries with people in their office or workstation. He just loved the people that he worked with. In addition to his generosity in those employment things, there was a lot of little generosity that Bill had, if you want to call it that. So I think of the example when I was I was out with Bill looking at some property one day, and we're driving down 86th Street, and he said, "Would you pull into Mr. B's there? I have something I want to look at." So we pull in and we walk into Mr. B's, and there's all the guys at Mr. B's who all knew Bill and greeted us. And he said, "I want to get that guy a suit." And I said, "Bill, I don't need a suit." And he said, "No, I want to get you a suit." I said, "If I bring another suit home, Nancy's going to think I'm crazy." I had 25 or 30 suits in my closet, and she used to laugh because they all looked the same. They were either black, navy blue, or dark gray. And Bill wouldn't have anything other than, he said, "What?" And then he turned to the guys and he says, "And get him a couple shirts and a couple ties too." So I went in and I picked out the suit and I got fitted up and so forth. And Bill kept shopping. So we got to the checkout and he had 2 big stacks of sweaters and shirts and things. Bought the whole deal. Bill loved to shop. And I think Susan probably in the last 10 or 15 years took back maybe 50% of everything that he'd buy. It'd go in the front door and right out the back door. He also, if any of you ever went to lunch or dinner with Bill, he always wanted to pay. So it was, in fact, usually you're halfway through the dinner and he's reaching to his pocket to get the credit card. So even like this happened maybe last year or the year before, I was at lunch with Bill and the food hadn't even come to the table and he's reaching for his pocket to get his credit card. And I said, Bill, you've probably bought me 1,000 lunches. Would you let me buy lunch? And he looked at me and he says, okay, but he said, I'm picking up the tip. Bill was the ultimate deal maker, always working on a deal. And Jerry and I, we had a hard time keeping up with him because about the time we'd get the paperwork done or try to close a deal, he's on to the next thing, you know. And sometimes we would act a little frustrated. And he'd pull us aside and he'd say, you know, guys, he says, the only thing that gets better with time is wine. So get to work. He was, and he had his little black book with the calendar in it that handwritten, and I don't think anybody could read the writing except him. And the calendar would usually get about this thick because he'd have slips of paper with names and lists and projects, and usually what I called his target list, which was a list of people who were going to be investors that he wanted to get to invest, people who were going to he wanted to give money for a charitable deal or a political deal, and which, interesting enough, Bill gets all this credit for giving money away. He also raised money. If there was a project for politics or charities, he was on the committee raising the money, usually chairing the committee, and if he was involved, you know that the funds were going to be raised. Bill, everybody realizes Bill loved politics. He was a proud liberal Democrat. He believed that Roosevelt saved the farm and his family back during the Great Depression. He had a great compassion for what he would call the poor and underprivileged people. He thought the government should work hard to help the common people succeed. And if those people succeeded, then the wealthy would succeed. And he would make that speech to many people, including many of his friends who were Republicans. Some moderate, some fairly conservative. So Bill loved to, promote a debate or, get stuff going on politics. And as soon as the things got kind of heated up, he'd figure out a way to turn the temperature down, and he would, usually offer to make a bet or something on who was going to win. So that's the way he calmed it down. In 2019, Jenny and Mark hosted a shower for my daughter, a wedding shower. And she was, going to get married in a few months. And so I was with Bill the day before the shower, kind of explaining to him what was going on and who was going to be there. And I said, my future son-in-law's parents are from Georgia. They're coming up here. I've never met them. They're, I understand, very nice people. But the dad, Mike Smith was his name, he's very, very, very conservative. So I said, let's just kind of, avoid politics. So we get to we're at the Embassy Club. The room's full of people. I'm over in the corner of the room with Mike Smith talking to him. I see Bill come in, and he makes a beeline right over to me. And I said, Bill, I'd like for you to meet, Mike Smith. And he says, what do you think of Trump? And Mike goes like this, gives the Trump thumbs up. And my knees buckle, and I think, oh my goodness, what are you doing? What are you doing to me, Bill? So Bill says, well, you know something? I don't think he should tweet so much. And Mike said, I think you're probably right. And he said, I hope that he's successful, because if he's successful, we're all going to be successful. Welcome to the family. and that was the end of it. Bill spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and raised hundreds of thousands of dollars to beat Bob Ray and Terry Branstad, and he was never successful. The last 15 or 20 years, he became great friends with both those men, and in fact, on Bob Ray, he joined with Harry Stein and financed the Bob and Billy Ray Promenade right through the middle of Drake University, which is a beautiful place to walk and see if you're ever interested and if you haven't seen it. Bill lived to be 99 and never looked his age. And it makes me think we'd go out sometimes to a restaurant or even walk in the mall, and he'd see some old guy with a cane or a walker that looked a little disheveled, a little crusty, and he would turn to me and he'd say, "Bill, if I ever look like that, call Dr. Kevorkian." So I think he would always say too that the reason for my longevity is because I've been passionate about exercise and diet, and which was true. In fact, he was a bit fanatic about exercise and diet, although he never could give up the sweet tooth. We know that. But I always felt that there was another reason for his longevity, and that was the love, the care, the honor, and the respect that he received from his family. And so I say, God bless them. God bless you, Susan, Jenny, Kendi, Brooke, Cole, Mark, Sable, Montana, Anna, Sarah. You all treated him with such respect and such love, and he knew that. He knew that he was loved. He knew that he was respected, and I think that's one of the reasons he lived as long as he did. If I thought to myself, if Bill were here right now, what would Bill say? And first thing he'd say is, let's keep it short, and in fact, I kind of hear him whispering in the ear, let's cut this off. Let's cut this off. But I think this is the very simple words that he would say. He'd say, thank you to my family. Thank you to my friends. Thank you to my employees. Thank you to my business associates. I love you, and you've done so much for me, and thank you.
Well, Billy, I know the last words you uttered to keep it short were meant for me, so I'll do my level best. But I've probably known Bill longer than 99% of you, setting family aside. I met Bill Knapp in 1969 when I was working for Harold Hughes in the United States Senate. And Bill came in regularly to just see his friend and figure out a little bit more about Washington and be a tourist and a sightseer. One of my favorite memories when I really got to understand Bill a little more was at the 1972 Democratic Convention, the National Convention in Miami Beach. George McGovern was the nominee that year, and he really was so opposed to the Vietnam War that it was turning people off and or igniting the people who did in fact support the war. And I remember sitting with Bill at one of the boring times in a convention, and he said, those people who are so gung-ho about Vietnam, they've never been in war. Well, Bill was in Okinawa, around Okinawa, the bloodiest, most deadly battle of World War II. But he didn't talk about it very much. When he did, it was on point. War is hell. We should avoid it at almost any cost. Veterans Day occurred recently, and I couldn't help but think what 17, 18, 19-year-old boy floating around Okinawa with fires, bullets, war raging. Gosh, that's an experience you never forget. There's that which he didn't forget, but which he moved away from. My most vivid impression of Bill Knapp, and I spent many hours, many days with him. He was our neighbor right next door. Unfortunately, he liked for me to work out with him at 5:30 every morning, no matter what. But I learned a lot about him during many of those hours. What's really true and strong and always going to be, Bill was a visionary. He could look out a window of his unit at the plaza and see a civic center. He could see a Drake diner. He could just see it. And if he could see it, it would happen if he could just convince enough people. And one of the people who worked very closely with him in the political, kind of shaping the political conversations of the day, was Ed Campbell, my husband who passed away quite a few years ago. Well, that also reminds me that I remarried, and that person, Mark Hamilton, who's back here ready to strangle me for mentioning this, we had known each other for many years, and Edward passed away, and Mark and I reconnected and ultimately got married. But as Bill and Susan were seeing that Mark and I were dating, Bill sent a message to me. I'm not sure, Susan, whether he said it directly or whether you said, look, if Mark's got other plans, Bill has to sign off on them. For example, if he asks you to marry him, you got to tell him Bill needs to sign off on him. Well, of course, you know that wasn't totally true, but it was true enough that I kept faith with it. And at the camper at the state fair one year, Mark had to ask for a meeting with Bill in the camper and get his permission to marry me. Happily, he did, but I wasn't ever really worried about it. We were such good friends. I think I don't even know to whom to attribute this. It's just a little ditty that I've had in my mind most of my life. You've all heard it. A bell is no bell till you ring it. A song is no song till you sing it. The love in your heart wasn't put there to stay. Love isn't love till you give it away. Well, Bill is that. He gave away so much love. He gave so much of himself, of his money, his resources, to so many worthy causes. Not everybody's like that. And I marveled myself that many members of the leadership, business leadership in our community were influenced by Bill in a lot of his thinking and generosity. And we have a better, more wonderful community because of it. I mentioned that Bill and we were neighbors. Bill had a unit at the plaza, and our unit was immediately next door. And that workout room that I avoided until Bill just trapped me, and it became something we did every day. And so we'd always be watching the Today Show or political coverage of some kind. And he became quite enamored with Hillary Clinton. He saw her speaking on television and was a big fan of hers. And of course I am too. But I was surprised that Bill was really, in the end, he supported Hillary, but she didn't make it as far as he would have liked. But as a woman and a feminist, I've thought that, someone of Bill's age might not be quite as liberal or feminist as I am, but he was, and pretty proud of it, and I was always, of course, very proud of him. Then I was thinking, oh my gosh, Bill imagined the downtown Des Moines that we have now. It's why it's here, in large part. He imagined Guido's restaurant and bar, which became the Democratic gathering place, even for national media and politicians. Guido's, who, by the way, had the best steak ever, a popular place. He just had a total need to express the love that he wanted to share in all the ways that he could. I was blessed to have his friendship for so many years. Grateful to Susan and all of their family that he had love and comfort for all those years. And I'm grateful for what Bill and Greg said. I'm a little annoyed with Greg because some of the things he said I wanted to say. All that really tells me is that they must be true. It's been a pleasure to share my thoughts and to look out and see so many people who probably think exactly the very words that I said. Thank you.
Good morning. Before I begin my remarks, Bill and I were kind of the odd couple in a lot of ways. It was kind of like Siskel and Ebert, Andre the Giant and Yogi Berra, Penn and Teller. I mean, you could see us coming from a mile away, and the thing that really brought us together, and Greg said it, was his passion for golf. Golf became Bill's passion in a lot of ways. And while he had much better golf coaches like Johnny Knapp and John Morrow, I became his coach. And I am a teacher and a coach, and I loved going out and being with Bill on the golf course as much as he did, and I often didn't even play. I would just coach him up and put the ball on the tee, and we'd have a great time. So that really did, he was driven. Golf gives us all hope. You hope you can get a good shot. You hope you can do a little better. Bill always wanted to shoot his age. And he came really close many, many times. And we'd laugh. I'd say, well, you're 90, you're 89, you get another stroke. You're 90, you get another stroke. You're 99. We could do this, Bill. And we came pretty close a few times. And I tell you what, he was still draining putts out there at 95, 96, 97, 98 years old. So William C. Knapp did it all with style, grace, and a smile on his face. He was a jack of all trades, one of a kind, and sometimes it seemed master of everything. This was certainly the case when it came to his real estate career. There's so much to say about Bill, and as you can imagine, it's really hard to know where to begin. What comes to mind first, though, when I think of him, is his great smile and gregarious personality. He was kind, he loved to laugh, and had a wonderful sense of humor. Bill liked people, he lived life to the fullest, embraced every single day, and because of it, he was just a lot of fun to be around. He enjoyed nothing more than spending quality time with his beloved Susan, his amazing family, his business associates, and his many friends. I can see it now, and this is just classic Bill. He would walk into a room, dressed to the nines, and someone would inevitably ask him, "So Bill, how are you doing?" He would smile broadly and then reply, "Well, if I was doing any better, I would be jealous of myself." He said that, and he meant that. Bill was an Iowa icon, a favorite son, a humble veteran, a sports enthusiast, devoted husband, proud family patriarch, and very loyal friend. He was a trailblazing entrepreneur, a real estate pioneer, a visionary business leader, and a generous philanthropist who touched countless lives while personifying the very best of Iowa values: family, relentless determination, unmatched work ethic, and selfless service to others. So as governor, it was my honor to present Bill Knapp with the Iowa Award 15 years ago. Since 1948, the award has only been given 25 times. The state's highest citizen award publicly recognizes those who have made exceptional contributions during their lives, and it is designed to encourage outstanding service in every field, including science, medicine, education, government, and business. Our state has produced individuals from all corners of Iowa who have made their mark. People like Borlaug, Hoover, Wallace, Van Allen, Catt, Gallup, Wilson, and Estes, to name a few. They are all without parallel the very best in their respective fields, and they are also all past recipients of the Iowa Award. So it is only fitting that William Clare Knapp be forever recognized as a member of that distinguished group. Today we are here from all walks of life, of different backgrounds and political persuasions, to honor and remember our friend and inspiration to many, Bill Knapp. So what was it that made Bill uniquely who he was? What lessons can we learn from him? And how can we try to emulate his example in terms of the way that he chose to live his life? I think it really boils down to four things. Bill really cared, as you've heard repeatedly this morning, about his family, his friends, his colleagues, his community, and his state. On a personal level, he was always supportive and there for you when you needed him. He made a point of staying in touch by scheduling regular calls, lunches, and social events. And he truly cared about what you were up to and how you were doing. As a leader and great employer, he was a mentor to many. He always offered a no-nonsense opinion, sage advice, and he rarely said no when you asked him for help or financial support. Two, perhaps most importantly, Bill Knapp never ever forgot where he came from. Even after all of his success, Bill just thought of himself as a kid from Allerton, Iowa. He learned a lot from the experiences that shaped his character. For example, as you've heard, he grew up on a dairy farm working 7 days a week as his family struggled during the Depression. I think this explains his toughness, his tenacity, and his resolve to succeed. He was small in nature, but he was fearless. He loved to box, and he was afraid of no one. In fact, one of his buddies once said, "Bill Knapp is as tough as a pine nut." Also, very few were as competitive as Bill. He loved to win, and he usually did, especially in business, politics, and sports. But it really didn't matter what the competition was. golf, hunting, tennis, racquetball, cards, and even tiddlywinks. Number 3, his appreciation and gratitude for life. As a 17-year-old, he volunteered and had to enlist early with his parents' permission in the U.S. Navy during World War II. There at the Battle of Okinawa, the largest and deadliest battle in the Pacific Theater, where more than 300,000 troops and civilians perished, Bill was assigned to the USS Catron, a naval attack and transport cargo ship that carried over 800 Marines. He was a coxswain, or the pilot, of the Higgins boats, which were used to take the Marines from the ship to the shores of Okinawa. Bill spent 7 days straight during the initial invasion, repeatedly dropping off troops and picking up the deceased and wounded. Bill said about this deployment, quote, "Coming from the farm at 17 and having been thrown directly into war, you learn a lot in pretty short order. You saw how tenuous life was and how easy you could have been annihilated in that situation. So it taught me," he said, "to appreciate every day and live life like it is your last day." End of quote. Number 4, I've never met anyone more generous than Bill Knapp, period. He taught us the importance of giving back and helping others. Bill recently said, "It makes everyone feel good if you can do something to make life better for people. No one cares how much money you make, but they certainly know what you give and how much you give back." He concluded by saying, "I think if you're successful at all, you need to give a lot back, and you owe a lot to the people that didn't have the same opportunities as you did." Finally, he said, "Giving makes me feel better than making any money I ever did. It makes me feel good knowing that when I leave here, things will be a little better than when I got here." Well, bosun mate, second class, William C. Knapp, mission accomplished and job well done. In closing, William C. Knapp will be sorely missed, but his legacy and impact on our capital city will live on and our state forever. So on this difficult day, as we mourn his loss, let us try to learn from his example. Family first, serve others, cherish each day, and always give back. It is my hope that Bill's extraordinary life and the lessons he shared with all of us will guide, motivate, and inspire us, as well as future Iowans, to follow in his footsteps. Job well done, my dear friend. May you rest in peace. We miss you, we love you, and we salute you. Thank you for your service to our community, our state, and our nation. You fought the good fight, and in true Bill Knapp fashion, you won the race.
This is the part where we'd be at a funeral and Bill would look at one of us and say, "If they go on any longer, I'm going to have to crawl in the casket with the guy." I promise we're almost done.
Oh, goodness. Okay, Papa. Good morning, and thank you for being here to honor Bill. Many people knew Bill as a visionary leader, a businessman, a developer, a philanthropist, a friend, a trusted colleague. But for us, we had the incredible honor of calling him Papa for more than 30 years.
When Bill came into our lives, my sister Anna and I were just preteen kids who hadn't been very lucky in the dad department. We lost our father tragically and far too early. Anna was only a couple weeks old and I was just 3. Our mother, suddenly a widow with 2 little girls, eventually remarried. And while our stepfather at the time tried in his own way to love us, he wasn't always kind. He carried trauma of his own, and some of that pain found its way to us. When that marriage ended, the 3 of us found a kind of peace in simply being together. We thought that was our whole world, and in many ways it was. We didn't know our family wasn't complete until Mom met Bill.
When Bill came into the picture, he had grown children of his own, along with 3 beautiful grandchildren, Kendi, Sable, and Montana. As the relationship grew and talk progressed to moving in together and blending families, there were ample opportunities for Bill to make a run for it. A now successful bachelor who enjoyed his penthouse lifestyle, we wouldn't have blamed him if he had. But he didn't. He stayed, and he showed up every day for the next 30 years. He loved us, he supported us, he made us feel safe, and most importantly, we watched him love our mother fiercely. He showed us that love is truly thicker than blood.
Growing up, we watched a man not only talk the talk, but walk the walk. In our home, he never raised his voice. There were never words of judgment or criticism of others, regardless of religion, socioeconomic status, or political party, though we all knew his preference. He was a feminist and a champion for human rights for all. He taught us that if you have, you do. There is purpose in service. Find a job that you enjoy and you will never work a day in your life. Don't burn bridges. Give back while you are alive because you can't take it with you when you go. And my favorite, you have to kiss ass before you can kick ass.
Jenny, Mark, and Kendi, we are so grateful for all the love that you have shown us over the years and for the love that you show our children. Jenny, we know how deeply you loved your dad and how hard it was to lose Roger. Thank you for sharing your dad with us. We really loved him very much. We've cherished looking back on the many family vacations we spent together and reminiscing about our favorite moments. Nothing made Bill happier than when we were all together as a family, filling a room with laughter and love and being surrounded by all of us at once. That truly brought him the most joy.
We are blessed to have so many memories to cherish and hold close. I love how he radiated love for our mother every single day. Sorry. I'm going to miss our Snapchat videos, his warm hugs, the way he adored my children and never told them no when they wanted to play pool or cards, and the wisdom he shared with me over morning coffee every week. I'll miss the birthday phone calls where he and Mom would sing beautifully out of key. What I wouldn't give to have just one of those saved in a voicemail. But I will carry all of this forward with me. I'll smile as I drive along the Des Moines skyline or take in a Drake basketball game. I'll think of him when I drop off food, the local shelter, or the Iowa food pantry. When I buy a random stranger lunch, which he did all the time, or treat a veteran to dinner, or just when I'm at the Iowa State Fair, the greatest fair on earth that he helped build. In all of these moments, big and small, he'll be right there with me.
I will miss seeing the golf cart pull up to our house with my mom on his daily ride. And him asking, how's business going? And telling me how proud he was of me. I will miss him requesting the ridiculous Christmas song by the Dixie Chicks, Merry Christmas from the Family, and asking him for me to perform it every year. I will miss those quiet moments in his company when we would just look at each other and we would smile and just say, life is good. One of the greatest gifts he gave me was the chance to return to school for my master's. Back in 2015, during one of my many evening visits at my folks' ranch, Bill said to me, if there's ever something you want to do that you would need to go back to school, I will help you. I knew my passion was in the field of mental health, but I wasn't sure returning to school in my 30s would even be possible. I asked if he was serious, though I already knew Bill never offered anything if he didn't mean it. 2 years later, I graduated with a master's in counseling, and a few years after that, I followed his encouragement again and became my own boss and opened my own practice, Good Life Therapy. Bill embodied what it means to live a good life. He cherished his connections with family, friends, and community. He found joy and purpose in lifting others up. He used his strengths to create a life of impact and embraced every moment with energy, generosity, and a whole lot of fun. Life is good, Papa, and he made it a whole lot better.
The trajectory of our lives changed forever the day Bill came into them. We will never take for granted the opportunities, experiences, and people we were blessed to know because of him. Over the past days, seeing the articles, the posts, and the heartfelt comments from people all across the state, dignitaries, friends, fellow veterans, co-workers, and countless others whose lives he touched, has shown us just how far his influence reached. Bill had a gift for making every person feel seen and valued, whether he was making a deal, offering a compliment, or simply saying hello. His kindness and compassion knew no boundaries. To him, everyone mattered. We are deeply grateful for the outpouring of love and for every person who came today to honor him.
Our call to all of you here today, after hearing everyone speak about Bill and reflecting on the many ways he touched our lives, is this: go out into the world and do good, whether it be in how you live, how you give, how you love, how you serve. The world will be a better place, and his legacy will live on if we all try to be like Bill.
Thank you.
We love you, Papa.
Well, I don't have that T-shirt. Good morning. Susan asked me to read a poem that is very important to her, but I need to explain to you why it's important to her. About 35 years ago, Roger and I were married in Aspen, Colorado, on a beautiful March day with the sun streaming through the stained glass windows in the Aspen Chapel, which also serves as a synagogue and community center. Joyce Chapman was my matron of honor, and Bill Knapp was Roger's best man. And it was fast forward to the dinner after the ceremony, and Bill Knapp is talking to the minister. And he said, you know, Greg, you have a beautiful chapel, but the carpet's a little worn. So he takes out his checkbook, writes a check for $30,000, and gives the minister the $30,000 check for the carpet, and then holds a fundraiser for the church at our reception at the Sardi House in Aspen. Just quintessential Bill, right? We can all relate to that. Well, fast forward from 1990 to 1998, and Roger and I are living at the plaza. It's a Sunday morning, the phone rings, and I think it's about 7 o'clock in the morning. So for those of you who have experienced that, you go, oh my God, who died? And it turned out that Bill and Susan were on the phone, and they announced that they had decided to get married, and we were very happy, and they said, it's going to be in Aspen, Colorado, and it's next week. And so it's like a shotgun wedding, right? And, and we would like for you to be our attendants, our best matron of honor and best man. So we juggled our schedules because we were working pretty hard at that time. And the four of us flew out to Aspen, Colorado, and we had the wedding. And now, Bill's life was complicated, so that was a very short guest list at the time. There were many parties afterwards, but there was music, there was a processional, there was a recessional, there were flowers. The sun cooperated, and it was streaming through the stained glass windows in October 21st of 1998. And they were married. It almost got a little messed up because Greg, the minister, said, "Will you, Susan, take Roger as your da-da-da-da?" And like, wait, not so fast, he's already married. So, so Bill and Susan were married, and as part of the service, I read this poem almost 30 years ago, and it is more meaningful to me today than it was 30 years ago. And the poem was written to really launch Susan and Bill's life together. And it was written by Lois Braby, who was Aunt Wilma's best friend, and Aunt Wilma helped raise Susan as a child. And so it has very special meaning, and I'd like to read it to you, and it's also in the program. It's called Dancing in the Wind. Take my hand, come dance with me, come dancing in the wind. We'll soar above the earthbound world, we'll touch the sun-filled sky. The soft white clouds will part for us as we go dancing by. Take my hand, come dance with me, come dancing in the wind. We'll glide among the silver stars, we'll view the midnight sky. The light of moon will guide us on as we go dancing by. Take my hand, come dance with me, come dancing in the wind. We'll catch the best of nature's song, we'll waltz across the sky. The galaxies will clap for us as we go dancing by. Come with me, do not be afraid. The wind will be our friend. We'll share the miracle of love. Our joy will fill the sky. Together we will find new life as we'll go dancing by. Come dancing in the wind. Come now, let's dance. Now, that poem has come true. So the clouds have parted for them for 30 years almost. They did glide through the stars. The galaxies did clap for them. They danced in the wind, and almost all of us in this church have danced right along with them, and for that we're grateful.
Friends, will you please join with me reading in unison the 23rd Psalm as printed in your bulletin. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace that's brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Than when we first begun.
Hear now this reading from Jeremiah chapter 32. Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, take these deeds, both this sealed deed of purchase and this open deed, and put them in an earthenware jar, in order that they may last for a long time. For thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, houses and fields and vineyards shall again be bought in this land. Jeremiah's story comes from a time of war. Just before these verses, we discover that there's a battle raging outside the city walls, and that it's only a matter of time before both the battle and the war will be lost. Defeat was imminent. Hope had thinned to almost nothing. The people of God would soon be driven from their homes and carried off to Babylon. And it's in this moment of unraveling, with ruin closing in, that God tells Jeremiah to buy land, to purchase property moments before the city falls. And so Jeremiah buys the land with silver, signs the deed, and buries it in a jar in the ground just as the enemy is storming the city gates. He does a deal at the least likely of times. But in time, this last-minute transaction feeds a prophetic imagination. It becomes a story of hope emerging in the darkest hour. Jeremiah is staking a claim on a future that no one else can see. He invests in a symbol of hope, a land deed buried in the ground that his enemies would soon control. This deed becomes a future promise. By his actions, he's narrating a vision. Someday we will go back to that place that fell in the hands of the enemy, he would tell the people. There will come a day, Jeremiah tells them, when we will open the jar that was buried and we will call this place home again. In time, we'll build houses and plant gardens, and life will flourish all over again. It's a story about hope in the face of loss. It's an ancient account about dreaming boldly when you've witnessed the very worst that the world can do. It's a story about a resurrection, about life rising up from the chaos in the very place that had been defeated and left for dead. As I've thought about Bill this week, I keep coming back to Jeremiah standing in that ruined city, burying a deed for a future that seemed so far away. I've thought about Bill because in so many ways he spent his life investing in hope. Bill didn't just believe in hope, he practiced it, he lived with it, he built it. Earlier this week, Susan told me a story that many of you know well, a story that shaped who Bill became. She told me about that 17-year-old Bill serving in the Navy in World War II, piloting a landing craft full of Marines at Okinawa. I've tried again and again to picture him there as a teenager with the weight of a nation resting on his shoulders. I imagine the noise and the smoke and the terror. I imagine him steering toward the beach, toward danger, instead of away from it. I imagine the young soldiers wading onto the beach and Bill watching out for them, even as he was still a kid himself. And then Susan said something that has stayed with me. She said that after the fighting had all ended, Bill went back to help the wounded, back to carry men whose lives were slipping away, back because something inside of him, compassion or courage or maybe both, pulled him there. I don't know what went through his mind at 17, but I imagine that in those moments, surrounded by suffering and the cost of war, he made a quiet promise to himself that life is precious, that time is not guaranteed, and that if you have the gift of walking away from a beach like that, if you have the gift of a future, then you should spend your life building something that helps others flourish. And Bill did. He came home and worked with conviction, with grit, and with imagination. There was a long distance between Okinawa and Des Moines, but Bill seemed to bridge the distance by choosing compassion over cynicism and forgiveness over hate. He gave himself to a city, not for recognition, but because he loved the idea of a place growing and thriving and becoming something better than what came before. The more I've heard about Bill this week, the more I saw the thread running through his life. He believed in the future. He believed in what could be and in what should be. He believed that when there is good to be done, you do it. Bill invested in hope. When I sat down with Susan and Sarah and Anna, and my office was filled with stories, tender stories and funny stories and ordinary stories that reveal the heart of a person. The very first thing that Susan said was, "He was the kindest man I've ever met." Susan, Sarah, and Anna went on to tell me that he liked everybody and that Bill's word was his word. They told me that Bill loved a good deal. They also said that he always saw the bigger picture and that he had empathy before it was cool. They told me about his sense of humor, his dance moves, and the way he'd walk into a room and say with his unmistakable voice, "Alexa, play 1940s country music." They told me he loved dogs and golf and boxing. He loved watching Muhammad Ali float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. He loved watching Caitlin Clark drain those deep threes, and he loved all things Drake basketball. He loved many things, but Sarah and Anna told me more than anything in the world, he loved our mom. They went on to say he loved us because we were an extension of her. They told me about how this 60-year-old man chose to take on a family and love them and everything about them. Well, everything except for when they took him to Chi-Chi's for the very first time. Never again, he said, never again. Sarah and Anna told me that Bill never yelled at them and that he would always ask, "How can I make your life better?" A simple question, but one that you can spend a lifetime answering. Bill also loved his kids, Jenny and Roger, with all his heart. I was told that when his son Roger died, Bill carried the weight of that loss deeply. You could see that his world just didn't feel the same without Roger in it. Maybe that's what so many of us feel today, that the world just doesn't feel the same without Bill, and that there's a Bill-shaped hole in our lives. I've also been thinking about where Bill will be buried tomorrow, at the Iowa Veterans Cemetery, a place that exists because Bill donated the land. I keep picturing that 17-year-old kid at Okinawa, standing among the wounded, among the brave, among those who risked everything for a future worth living. And then I picture him, more than 80 years later, laid to rest on the land he chose to give away, land dedicated to the very people with whom he once stood shoulder to shoulder. There's something full circle about that, something sacred, something like a promise returned to the earth fulfilled. It's as if this young man who once walked through fire came home at the end of his days to a place shaped by his own generosity, surrounded again by those who knew the cost of service. And maybe that's why Jeremiah's story feels so fitting today, because Jeremiah's deed in a clay jar was a declaration. The end is not the end. God is not finished with us yet. And Bill, in his own way, kept making that same declaration. He kept planting seeds. He kept building. He kept giving. He kept believing that tomorrow was worth fighting for, worth investing in, even when the storms came and grief had its say. We're here today because Bill mattered. He mattered to the family whose love sustained him. He mattered to this city whose neighborhoods and skylines bear his fingerprints. He mattered to countless people whose names he never knew, but whose lives he strengthened all the same. But most of all, he mattered because he chose to live with hope. Not vague optimism, not wishful thinking. Hope, the kind that rolls up its sleeves and says, yes, this is worth believing in. Hope that sees the world not only as it is, but as it could be. Hope that buries a deed in a jar for another day. Hope that returns to a beach to carry the wounded. Hope that asks the people that you love, how can I make your life better? And that's the hope that Bill lived. And I trust it's the hope that still lives on. Amen.
Good morning. Friends, family in the city of Des Moines. My name is Billy Weathers. Known to some as Be Well. I'm humbled, honored, blessed, and feel small to be in this position in the best way possible. Last week, my good friend Sarah Healy called me and informed me of the news of her father, rock and mentor, Bill, passing. As I offered my condolences, she asked if I would be willing to write something special to not only commemorate and celebrate his life, but to also honor him. Bill and Susan were present a few years back when I had the privilege of performing with the Des Moines Symphony at Yankee Doodle Pops, and immediately I said yes. I was in awe of the ask and more thankful to even be considered. And so on Monday, I met with Susan, Sarah, and Anna at Chain and Spoke, and we had coffee, and we spoke for a while, quite a while, about Bill. And I was aware of the presence and kind of the giant that he was, but I was looking for more. I wanted to know a little more of the human, the son, the father, the husband, and the mentor. And as they shared their stories and sentiments, Sarah shared a mantra in which Bill chose to live by. If you have, you do. I immediately interrupted them, and I said that'll be the name of the piece, but please continue. I was struck by that sentiment and phrase, and sat with it for the next couple days as I pondered on what I would write. So again, I want to thank Sarah, Susan, Anna, the city of Des Moines, and the entire Knapp family, not only for this opportunity, but for a chance to commemorate a giant. This piece is called If You Have, You Do. Let me break down these 5 simple words to live by. A phrase to embody that all begins as we try. But who am I to assume the ease of any gesture, since humility and generosity are tough traits to measure? But the giant that was Bill walked gentle with every step, and value was never judged by what you could present, or even what you had or what you brought to his table. Aware that times change, but you always give when you're able. The stables in which he built and the buildings that never vanish, articulate, well-mannered, and able to take advantage of opportunities when presented, a visionary for many. Des Moines owes quite a thank you, and I'm sure that list is plenty. He saw time as a gift and therefore never wasted a moment. Whether family, business, or friends, he was truly devoted to making you feel seen, heard, or even honored, the first to lead a charge when others would never bother or care to look in that direction for fear of others' perception. You see, value is objective, but love grows in every direction. A listener first, and shoulder whenever needed. The only thing people truly remember is how they were treated. Not the money that you raised, but the virtues in which you live, integrity you define, and the aura that you give. Presence isn't boastful, especially when the impact is felt. True leaders can make a change before you even ask for their help. It costs you nothing to be kind or get to asking some questions. You see, the CEO and the janitor both deserve your attention and can teach you a lesson about life's true meaning or even chasing a sunset, the acceptance of difference and letting regret rest. See, the cost of freedom isn't free, and that's something that he witnessed on the shores of Okinawa when he bravely enlisted. At the age of 17, with both of his parents' blessings, he knew the burden of the privilege is rarely ever resting. A testament reigns true regardless of when you knew him. May not have been the tallest, but he was probably the biggest and best human. Whether hunting or fishing or wrapping up the back 9, the simple smile that he would share ensured that everything was just fine. Exactly where he was at. Present and thankful. Never looking for the spotlight, recognition, or labels. Just was able and willing to live. Peaceful, simply in truth, and embody the 5 words. If you have, you do. Thank you.
Friends, on behalf of the family, you are invited to a meal in Waveland Hall and Common Grounds immediately following this service. Plymouth deacons are available at the doors and can help you find your way to the meal. Thank you. And now, with the sure and certain hope of the resurrection to eternal life through our Lord Jesus Christ, we commend William C. Knapp to God. May the Lord bless him and keep him. The Lord's face shine upon him and be gracious to him, and give him everlasting joy and peace. Amen.